Hey, it's me, John. Real quick, before we get to the episode, I wanted to plug a quick item that is now available for sale on Amazon.com. I made a movie journal so that you can log your movies analog style. Let's say you're not feeling the whole letterboxed thing or doing stuff on your phone. I created a book called My Year in Movies, 365 pages of cinematic exploration. It is a perfect gift for the cinephile in your family or maybe yourself. Each page is to represent one movie throughout a year of movie watching, and there's a space to write down your notes, who you watched the movie with, how you watched it, and also a little spot to attach your ticket stub if you saw it in a theater. So check out the link. It's on our link tree in this show's description, and I would really appreciate it if you bought it. It would help support the show. And now, on with the show.
I have to confess that I've never let the children watch a hockey game. I have a theory that children imitate what they see on a TV screen. They see violence, they'll become violent. They see someone stick up a bank, they'll stick up a bank. Heroin, you name it.
You're fucked.
What?
You are totally fucked. You're garbage for letting us all go down the drain.
Are you serious?
You could sell us. We're hot. People go nuts for us. You could find a buyer.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhood Podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters! Thank you for tuning in to Ruined Childhoods, your favorite podcast about movies and how those movies could be revived and brought back in some way, shape, or form. Perhaps you know that because you're a subscriber, or maybe you're joining us for the first time because you are a fan of Slapshot.
Or you just love us. You just can't get enough of our voices.
No, either you're like, I will listen to you talk about any movie whatsoever, or you're sliding on in for the Slapshot.
Sliding on in.
We're happy to have you.
Dan, have you ever ice skated before?
I
have a hard time picturing you on ice skates.
Oh, as well you should. I had a hard time being on ice skates the one time that I attempted ice skating.
I've seen you on roller skates, but maybe not inline skates.
Oh, I would say, have you seen me on roller skates?
Were you not on roller skates at your daughter's birthday party?
I was not.
Then maybe I haven't seen you on roller skates.
No.
Then I've never seen you glide.
I have never glidden. My feet were not made to have a blade or wheels or a blade of wheels or blade of steel. Just a sole, some toes, and a heel. There we go. I'm sousing it up a little bit tonight. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, John, no, not me. How about you? You a skater or a hater?
I've been on a rink or two in my life, but it's certainly not been a thing.
You were on the roller skates at my daughter's birthday party.
Oh, for all of like 15 seconds.
That's 15 more seconds than I was on.
They were a harrowing 15 seconds. I think I went around the rink once just because it was like, I've got these things on me. May as well just give it a go. And when I was a tween, maybe even younger, that's when the like rollerblade craze was hitting the nation. And so I messed with those a little bit.
I do have a vague recollection of that.
Yeah, clicking those onto my feet. Yeah. But ice skating, less so. But I always enjoyed going to hockey games.
Yes.
Growing up, for those who don't know, Dan and I are brothers. We grew up in the same household with the same parents, one of whom would enjoy going to New Jersey Devils games. We grew up in New Jersey. And so I went to a handful of New Jersey Devils games. Did you not?
I only remember going to one.
Okay.
It was awesome. I had a great time. And
I feel like it's maybe 5 times at most. And
more times
what
than me.
what I remember is getting like a souvenir puck and some like Carvel ice cream. That's what I remember about it. Well, I mean, I also enjoyed going to the hockey games, and I also went and saw an Anaheim Ducks game when I was living in LA once. But
yeah, you kind of have to, it's
you don't have to.
You make the pilgrimage to the pond, salute Coach Bombay.
Gordon Bombay, the Gin King.
Yeah, seriously. Anyway, that's for another episode.
Well, anyway, before we get too deep into
wrong hockey movie, Mighty Ducks.
Yeah, before we talk about that anyway, let's talk a little. We have a few more things that we wanted to mention about Popeye. Well, actually, I'll say this. One of my things isn't even about Popeye; it's about our Popeye episode. As I was editing, I wanted to make sure that it was clear because I don't think that it was clear as we were talking about the movie Bullet Train, because you had watched that movie prior to us recording the Popeye episode. I want to make it clear that we don't think that Guy Ritchie directed Bullet Train.
No.
It's just that it has that Guy Ritchie vibe to it.
Yes.
Though it is a David Leitch directed film.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And the other thought that I had was that I was surprised that we didn't have more overlapping conversation in our episode.
Right. Well,
there
that's
were
because
times
there was only you having I thought you were going to keep going, so we would be.
There were more times than I thought that there would be.
Right, but
and
it would
I did
have helped
consider
if you had somebody coming in on your
it happening
side.
at one
if
time
I had
or another.
somebody coming in on my side, and then those conversations
wouldn't
were
that
happening.
have been such a Robert
so
Altman thing to
Altman-esque,
do?
right? It's Altman-esque, right? Okay.
Oh God,
so
Altman-esque. So what do you have? What do you have? What are your one more things about the Popeye episode?
All right. Well, first of all, I guess we'll segue into the Altman comment because we talked about some of the parallels, connections between Popeye and Annie. I think maybe only glazed over the choice of that Annie was directed by John Huston and this was directed by Robert Altman. So like known kind of like mavericks, this is not, Rob Marshall directing a movie musical, which just makes sense because Rob Marshall was, Broadway choreographer before directing films such as Chicago. So it's interesting that not only is like Popeye kind of the product of the loss of the bidding war for Annie, but it's also like we're going to hire these renegade like My Way or the Highway directors. I think Houston was more of the tough guy version of that, directing Annie, and also just the fact that like John Huston, also his role in Chinatown just makes it weird that he directed Annie. But it made me think about like, okay, so if they were remaking it and if we were like, doing a remake like in that tradition, who would be the asynchronic, I guess, director that you would hire for? I was like, the first three names that popped to my mind were Aronofsky, Astor, and Eggers.
I was gonna say Aronofsky, maybe Paul Thomas Anderson. I think that
that would be
and Robert Altman have so many parallels.
Yes.
Anyway, but yeah, I think that your analysis is probably spot on.
I feel like that would be much more in keeping. Like an obvious choice, I feel like would be like a Taika Waititi. He seems like he would really nail a Popeye movie.
He would definitely make a fun Popeye movie.
Yeah. But he feels like an obvious safe choice as opposed to someone like an Altman or a Huston. And then with Aronofsky, actually, I have one more thing about The Whale, and that was just kind of another film that it reminded me of in many ways was Leaving Las Vegas. And I think I neglected to mention that when I was talking about The Whale. But
well, you know what it also reminds me of is Point Break, because I'm pretty sure he ate 2 meatball subs.
2! Give me 2.
I think I referenced that in the last episode, but in a different way.
Yeah, he
anyway,
ate 2
on.
meatball subs wrapped in a pizza.
Yeah.
God, he earned that Oscar. It was his version of Leonardo DiCaprio fighting a bear in The Revenant. What more must I do for an Oscar? I'll fight this bear. All right. A couple more things on Popeye. And then I'm pretty sure that this has been already done as like a parody. I know I've seen like a couple of like fake posters done, but like the gritty, realistic origin story of Popeye, not the story of the actual person who Popeye was based on.
Right.
I'm not saying they should seriously do it. It sounds like, I mean, it's an SNL sketch. I mean, like that they've pretty much done already, but like the gritty, realistic origin story of Popeye, there's no way to do it where it's not parody.
No, it's super fun. And I was even thinking about it because the other day I did see the new Wes Anderson movie, Asteroid City, which I liked more than I thought I was going to.
Okay.
Because I didn't like the French Dispatch. And watching Asteroid City, I found myself enjoying it a lot. And of course, it has become so en vogue to do your Wes Anderson style parodies of things. And it got me thinking about like, well, what would a Wes Anderson style Popeye movie be like? And I thought kind of more about like Fantastic Mr. Fox and his stop motion work and Isle of Dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking like, stop motion would actually be really fun for Popeye. And to do it with Wes Anderson, that's the only way that I could see that really working. Because I think that when it's a property that, has its origins in like the 20s and 30s, you need somebody who's kind of trapped in a different time to do it.
Also, I think doing it animated would give him more flexibility. This is going to sound so weird, but more flexibility in casting his cast of actors. Like Adrian Brody would not play like Bluto in a live action Popeye, but he might very well voice Bluto in the Wes Anderson Popeye.
Well, somebody who could also play Bluto in a live action and also voice Bluto in a stop motion animated in the Wes Anderson players, or at least was in French Dispatch, would be Benicio del Toro.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was watching French Dispatch and I was just like, that's Bluto.
Damn. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. And then because I don't want to spend the whole episode talking about Popeye, I mean, I could, but also just wanted to kind of come back to the music because I remember you were talking about the demos and I went back and listened to a lot of them.
Oh,
and I'm Mean was the song that really caught me. And I have to say, like, I posted about the Popeye episode on social media and, there was a couple of comments and like one of them regarding the music and not kind about the music, which I just have to say, like, listening to these demos and really hearing the lyrics was like, damn, like either I'm reading way too much into this or like he writes in, there's a verse where Bluto sings about having a dream where he beats himself up. And I'm like, damn it. Like if like an analyst would just like would be sitting there and just like listening. But also the odd lyrics. And it was funny because I remember reading in the trivia that like this was technically the first like Disney movie to have profanity in it, which I thought was referencing haul ass, which Pappy, the Commodore, just yells haul ass a lot. But I didn't hear it in the song, but there's a lyric, and maybe it's not in the film version, but in the demo version where Bluto says he's meaner than shit.
I mean, you know what I mean? I mean that I'm mean. I mean what I say. You know what I mean? I'm meaner than spit. I'm meaner than shit. I'm meaner than mean. And the lyrics for the part that you were referencing before was, I'm so mean, I had a dream of beating myself up. I broke my nose. I broke my hand. I wrestled myself to the ground. And then I choked myself to death, then broke the choke and woke up. That's how mean I'm mean. I'm mean.
I mean, that's fucked up. Like, but to me, I hear that and I'm like, someone like Harry Nilsson could have easily just churned out a couple of like shanties and, character songs. But I love this depth that he adds. And it's not just in that song, but that was the one where it really got me.
Also, and for anybody who didn't listen to the last episode, we're talking about the Harry Nilsson soundtrack to the Popeye movie from 1980. And there is a more recently released version that includes of the soundtrack. That includes a lot of the demos that he did. And the one that really struck me is the one where Shelley Duvall is recording the "He Needs Me" song.
Yeah.
Which now that I've heard that song in that soundtrack, the way that they did it, because it's, them doing a couple takes of it and it's very real. And it makes me really appreciate that song. And looking at the lyrics, it starts all at once. I knew at once, I knew he needed me. And the like sing-songy way, the bounce that it has, the cadence that it has, the way that Shelley Duvall sings it is so perfect.
Yeah. Spot on. Yeah. I listened to that one as well. And
yeah,
I also enjoyed hearing Nielsen directing the other musicians, all like, extremely accomplished musicians. So
yeah, I can just picture him wearing his RCA cap in the studio.
But I mean, it's also like these demos are especially because the kind of idea, the image is that he was just a washed up, coked up alcoholic. But on these demos, he sounds very lucid, very in control, and very much like he knows exactly how these songs should sound. And I, again, in reflecting on it, just feel they were perfect for this version of Popeye.
Yeah. And Dan, I don't know if you have any one more things.
I have no more things.
Well, all I'll say is, we also talked a little bit about the incredible Paul Dooley and his appearance as Wimpy. And here's our connection. Paul Dooley's in Slapshot.
Wow. It's kind of like a relay race and Stephen Root handed the baton to Paul Dooley.
I like it.
Yeah. Although neither will appear in the next film that we talk about. So
no, I don't suppose we're going to have any direct connections. But we'll get to that
anyway,
when we get to that.
Yeah.
So Paul Dooley is an announcer, like a radio announcer, very briefly in Slapshot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in there and it's just enough for you to be like, it's Paul Dooley.
Yeah. So Dan, are you a Slapshot fan?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Are you?
All right. I have seen it before, and it's one that I've always been a little unsure about because I feel like I have a hard time paying attention to it. It's not a story that really grips me, but on my most recent watch, and there were a couple of recent watches because I put it on once and I was just like, it's not keeping my focus. I can't watch it right now.
Yeah.
And I watched it again. And I watched it going into it, having done a little bit of reading about it and reading about, Nancy Dowd, who wrote it. And first of all, the fact that a woman wrote it is an entirely fascinating aspect.
It has a lot to do with my hesitation behind my no. And I'm curious to know, I admittedly did not do much research. I mean, I did enough to know that she based it on her brother's experiences.
Sure. So yeah, her brother, Ned Dowd, who's, an entertainment industry name as well. He was actually a player on the Johnstown Jets. And the Johnstown Jets was another minor league hockey team that the Chiefs were based off of in Slapshot. And Nancy had found a lot of his kind of I don't know if they were diary entries or something, he had written about his experiences being on the Johnstown Jets. And she was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And she wanted to develop the story about this. And the fact that it comes from a place of truth about this minor league hockey team in a very small steel town in Western Pennsylvania. Why don't I read the synopsis?
Yeah.
Oh, also, and this is a one more thing. On the last episode, as we were talking about doing Slapshot on this episode, we had never done a hockey movie before. That is not true. We did The Cutting Edge.
Yes.
Look, there is hockey in it. There are ice skates in it.
That is definitely the closest we have.
Hey,
that is
That's the closest.
The only
yeah.
other movie we've done that we could consider a hockey movie. You know, I think the time will come when we do Mighty Ducks.
Yeah, I'd love to. There's a lot to cover there.
I can't think of other hockey movies, Goon, but I'm going to talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So here's a little synopsis. A small western Pennsylvania town is going through a financial crisis, and its residents are unable to afford their favorite pastime, going to their local hockey team's games. With ticket sales down for Chiefs games and the team manager actively looking for a new job, the team coach and most senior player, Reggie Dunlop, relies on unusual tactics to encourage ticket sales, inciting fights, turning the ice sport into a blood sport. He also starts a rumor that the team is to be sold to a retirement home in Florida, which only makes the players want to revolt even harder. The only exception being star player Ned Braden. Dunlop's plan works, and the Chiefs are more popular than ever. And clearly there's a whole lot more that goes on, but that's the gist of it. And the violence is inspired by a trio of new players that the manager brings on, that the Hanson brothers, and they're played by Steve Carlson, Jeff Carlson, and David Hanson, and they are what you think of when you think of Slapshot if you're not thinking of Paul Newman, right? And you're probably not thinking of Michael Ontkeen, of Twin Peaks fame.
If you are, you thought about the others first.
Yes, you most certainly did. I mean, the imagery of them looking like Andrew WK, all covered in blood and sweat, and it's just it is the image of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. The Hanson brothers. I mean, it's as much as you can consider a Paul Newman movie to be a cult film.
Yeah,
this definitely fits. So I guess what Slapshot, I kind of find it to be similar, like kind of structurally, tonally, to Caddyshack, where it's very uneven.
It's like little vignettes.
Yeah.
Well, there are scenes in Slapshot that only seem to exist to entertain, and when it comes to how they drive the story forward, it's a lot to just set up a little thing. For example, there's the scene where Paul Newman has slept with the wife of another team's player, and she's telling him all this information about how she's been sleeping with women.
Yeah.
There's no substance to that aside from the fact that it's leading to bait for him to encourage a fight.
Right.
But it's a very nice scene. I think that there's a lot of really interesting conversation going on about openness about homosexuality that is unexpected for a 1977 movie that's about hockey.
Well, and there we go, because it does feel like this movie is much more about sexuality, about like masculinity and gender roles than it is about hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of subplots revolving around the relationships of the hockey players themselves.
But whether it's kind of like and I forget the actor's name. He's in so many things. I always think of him as the father in Prince of Tides, the Wingo's like abusive father.
Oh God!
But that guy, and like I want to call him Chelsea Ross, but I know he's not Chelsea Ross. But
who did he play?
He's
in this?
always talking about sex, and everything always comes back to sex, and he's got the porn up in his locker.
Oh,
and everything.
Brad Sullivan. He plays Mo Wanchuk.
Okay. Yeah. And he's just constantly talking about like sexual conquests or like what he's quote unquote done or what he would do. And it's so much where it's like, why is this guy like, this guy's fixated? Why is he going into it so much? So there's him, and then there's Michael Ontkeen's character, who's had like no sexual relationship with his wife, and like their marriage, I think, is portrayed in a really interesting and very probably realistic manner.
What's great about that character, his wife being Lily.
Yeah.
Who's played by Lindsay Krause, who's married to David Mamet, Zosha Mamet's mother.
Yes. Yeah.
And she is very bitter because they have moved to this small town for this hockey team, and she's extremely unhappy there. And Reggie, Paul Newman's character, is kind of, I don't know, taken her in. Like they have it's kind of like a father-daughter relationship.
Father, brother, sister, older brother, younger sister.
Yeah, older brother, younger sister.
Yeah.
Maybe feels more appropriate. And he's kind of taken her in and is trying to help her out, and even gets his separated wife, they haven't divorced yet, Francine, to kind of like towards the end kind of help her come out of her shell a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Find herself.
Yeah. And I guess that inspires him to find himself.
Yeah.
As everyone is brawling on the ice in the, in the end, the last big scene of the movie. And he just starts to skate around and strip.
He does a strip tease.
Yeah. Right down to his jockstrap.
Yes. Which is, it's fun. And that's kind of brings everything. He's the only one who doesn't really approve of the violence, and he just wants to play hockey. He's not there for for all that stuff. He's there just to play hockey. And yeah, I kind of like he found the way to disrupt everything. And I'd have to watch it a few more times to kind of really get a feel for like, what is going through his mind in that moment where he sees his wife, she's dolled up, she's happy. What is going on in his mind?
Right. Like, is it just because like she gets a makeover? And it, of course there's the, kind of heavy-handed irony of, all of a sudden the violence stops and all these really violent people are like, get that pervert off the ice.
Well, I think that for him, it's less about the way that she looks and more about the way that she is looking.
Is it like she's there and she's
her
happy?
Glances. She's happy. She's watching everything going on. She looks over him and just gives him a quick little glance, then looks back and is smiling and enjoying watching this spectacle.
Which you don't see her enjoy herself throughout the movie up until this point. She's always drunk.
Yeah, just generally
and
unhappy.
Complaining. Yeah.
And driving very fast.
Yeah, so then it kind of just lets him maybe say like, nothing else matters, and he strips down because it's not a sexual thing.
I think it's liberation.
Yeah. And this is where this movie kind of enters interesting phase because the language it uses is really abrasive.
Right.
And, really outdated, would be canceled.
Let's just say they use the F word that we're not willing to say.
Correct.
Very liberally.
Fucking A. They use that throughout, but it's also like, it gets to the point where I'm like, is this movie more progressive than it feels? And is it just doing a really good job of showing that blue collar reality?
I think that a word that we just mentioned that comes into play, I think that really is the core of this movie, is liberation. And when you look at the women in this movie, you have the woman who actually owns the team, whose deceased husband owned it, and she is doing great. She owns this hockey team. She could take it or leave it. She is, it's not really a big thing for her. She's got her own thing going on, and she's, a woman on her own that's got her shit together. We have Reggie's wife. She's living her life.
Yeah.
They're not divorced, and Reggie's the one that's kind of pining for her, but also respects that she has her own thing going on. And then, of course, we have the wife, Melinda Dillon's character, Suzanne Hanrahan, who we would know from Close Encounters and Absent of Malice,
Prince of Tides,
Christmas Story. She's in Prince of Tides?
Prince of Tides. Yeah, she's in Prince of Tides.
Well, she's fantastic. She's the one that he sleeps with, and she's talking about how she's been kind of in this relationship with this woman, and she explains how it started and how it's going and how it's making her feel. And she's speaking about it with confidence and not self-conscious at all. And these are the women. I mean, Swoozie Kurtz's character, it's like we have so many of these women who are just really, I don't know, they're doing great.
Yeah, like they're comfortable where they are.
And Lily Braden, Lindsay Krass's character, she gets to that point.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess it's that element of taking control and just kind of saying like, yes, these are my choices and this is my life. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah. And the men are just savage animals.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, except for Michael Onkeen.
Michael Onkeen, yeah, right. Who's, he's resisting it and he's trying to be the voice of reason. We have Paul Newman's character who's kind of being a bit of a puppet master and manipulating things and trying to take control of things, whereas in his personal life, he doesn't have control.
Right. Of course, the comparisons are obvious and warranted and everything. But of course, Major League takes a lot of cues from this movie. It kind of feels like Paul Newman's character is like the Tom Berenger character.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's the elder statesman of the team. He's the voice of reason.
And he's got his pursuit and he's kind of like steering the team's, mood and everything. Plus you've got like Charlie Sheen as Rick Vaughn with the glasses and everything, like the fourth Hanson brother.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And mind you, like, and if you heard our Major League episode, I mean, I think that's a fun movie. I really like Major League. And I think David S. Ward himself, the writer and director of Major League, would happily and proudly admit to the influence of Slapshot on that film.
Yeah. And Slapshot also comes a year after Bad News Bears.
Yeah.
Which is, we covered that. It's, just another on its surface level about a bunch of foul-mouthed kids.
Yeah.
and
that's an underdog story.
And they're a coach who doesn't care about anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that Slapshot and Bad News Bears kind of get bundled together in kind of like a, slobby sports movies of the mid to late 70s.
Yeah.
It was kind of a thing.
Well, and you've got whether it's the cantankerous coach and shout out, by the way, to Strother Martin, the team playing the team manager in this, who also plays into the whole question of like evolving attitudes on sexuality. Because Reggie talks about, I guess, coming up to his apartment or his like hotel room once to like, give him something or get something from him. And like he walked in like and Strother Martin's character was like, wearing women's clothing.
Yeah.
And which prompts Reggie to just be like, hey, I don't care, whatever.
Yes.
But it's almost like he's discovering this in the moment that like it is absolutely fine and natural.
Right. Well, and when Reggie is having that conversation in bed with Hanrahan's wife, she asks him, have you ever considered maybe that you're gay? And he's speaking about it in a way that's like, the words are like, no, I would never. But the way he's saying it is like, he's processing it and he's being respectful to her about her story and her situation.
Right.
And he's just like, of course it could happen, but it's just, no. It's not something I'd ever do.
Right. Yeah. It's not homophobic. There's that element there in the film, but I think a lot of it is also kind of exploring that at this time, people were starting to come around and change their stances and their feelings about
right. Be more open to the idea of sexuality
Yeah.
being a spectrum.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, I'm sorry. It just occurred to me. I did have another one more thing for Popeye, but I feel like it's
too late.
it is too late.
time has passed.
All right.
The time has
Anyway.
passed.
Ah, damn it. All right. Okay. So shout out to screenwriter Jules Pfeiffer. There we go. All right. So Slapshot definitely has a lot going on, and there's these. It's like there's these elements of it, and then you've got the Hansons. Like, they brought their toys, their suitcases that are just filled with toys.
Which is just delightful.
Yes. It's fantastic. And I feel like it's like all the elements are there in this movie, but they're not, I feel, for me, the right balance.
Yeah.
Now, just to kind of come back to Nancy Dowd, because in my limited research, also feel it's worth pointing out that even though like she was credited as the screenwriter for this,
yeah,
she wrote other screenplays that she either used a male pseudonym.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Or she wrote them without credit. So she herself was credited for this, and also 1978's Coming Home. John Voight, Jane Fonda.
Hal Ashby.
Yeah, Hal Ashby.
Yeah.
Right. But then she did 78's so Straight Time, North Dallas 40, like a pretty raunchy football movie.
Yeah, Nick Nolte. Yeah.
Yeah. So she does that. She did work or wrote Ordinary People.
Yep.
Or did uncredited work on that. I mean, I'm just reading off her Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Cloak and Dagger, the Dabney Coleman, Henry Thomas kids.
Oh, we love our Dabney Coleman.
Well, we loved Cloak and Dagger because we watched 1980s HBO and saw it a million times.
I don't know if I saw Cloak and Dagger.
I saw it
growing up.
Definitely. You were a little, it might have been, it was early. But anyway, Swing Shift. White Knights. Let It Ride. So like a lot, interestingly, a lot of, sports. Let It Ride is about sports gambling. But so she wrote under the name Ernest Morton.
Okay.
Or Rob Morton.
Huh, so I wonder what the significance is.
She's credited as Rob Morton in Swing. I know, right? It's like, there's gotta be some reason. She that's just, there's gotta be too much, and there's gotta be some intention in there.
And she got the best the Oscar for best original screenplay for Coming Home.
Yeah.
So it's not like her name has any sourness to it.
It makes me want to know more about Nancy Dowd.
Of course, yeah. Of course, we have to mention that there is a Slapshot 2 and a Slapshot 3. I wasn't able to find either one of those.
I'll be honest, I didn't try.
Okay, I did as much as try. I'm just going to read the synopsis for Slapshot 2, Breaking the Ice, real quick. If you also look at the poster art for these, which first of all, these are just like straight to video, but you look at them and you're just like, oh, this is not the same. But I believe that they just all feature the Hanson brothers, and that's the link.
And Stephen Baldwin. No, oh yeah, the link. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, okay, Slapshot 2, Breaking the Ice. West Virginia's ice hockey team, the Charlestown Chiefs, is as fiery as ever. So I guess they're in West Virginia now. The new coach, Sean Liddon, Stephen Baldwin, leads the rambunctious squad, which includes the famed Hanson brothers, through their victories and with little concern for their often violent antics. But the team's approach is threatened when the club is bought by executive Richard Claremont, Gary Busey, who pressures them to throw games and tone down their tempers in exchange for money. Okay. And then for Slapshot 3, the Junior League, the only synopsis that I'm going to read. The Hanson brothers return to get another team of underdog ice hockey skaters into shape and compete in a big tournament. So I don't even know if the Chiefs, there's a Chiefs jersey on the poster art, but that's, I don't know, probably as much as there is to it.
Yeah. And John, it's interesting. It occurred to me as you're saying it was, direct to video. And I think about our kind of like, the way that movies and releasing has changed in the last 5 years, where like straight to video releases have been Best Picture nominees. I'm like, The Power of the Dog was was straight to video,
Absolutely.
So it's just interesting how really streaming has really transformed it, where it's different because these are also like Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, straight to video. Of course it's a different pedigree now, but wow, who'd have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it? That's a great question. Speaking of thunking things, Dan, what do you thunk? What would you do with Slapshot, given the opportunity to do something new with it?
Do something new. Well, first of all, I maybe she's written it, but I don't think so. But I would love to read a memoir by Nancy Dowd.
Sure. Yeah.
What would I do with Slapshot? I bet you. I was going to say HBO, and then I was like, no, HBO Max. And then I was like, Max, which, by the way, it kind of depresses me that we've just taken the HBO out of it. But
that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to say strictly them, but I feel like a good, you could potentially do a fun streaming show with it. And the only reason why I am backing away from the Max thing is because it would be way too tempting to make it like a Jody Hill, Danny McBride project.
Yeah.
Which I feel like, they had Eastbound and Down. So I wouldn't want, and I feel like if it's on that like whatever network service, whatever the hell we're calling it now, it would kind of be that by default.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? So like,
yeah.
I'm feeling like, whether it's I know it's a Universal film. I don't know who has the rights now, but like an Apple TV, like an Apple TV series, because it would be fun. And I would love to get some good creative, like maybe celebrity fans of this movie who, and I know there are a lot. The only one I can think of right now who does have some, writing experience, mostly in the comic world, is professional wrestler known as CM Punk, who also, I think he wrote, co-wrote a run of like the Thor comics or something like that.
See, Dan, I thought you were going to say Kevin Smith, who's a hockey jersey enthusiast.
Well, yes, but also, I mean, Kevin Smith. Yeah, I feel like, though, I wouldn't want to have Kevin Smith's Slapshot. I don't know. Like, I feel like it would be fine, but
I was just commenting on the fact that he wears hockey jerseys.
Yes, he does. No. And like, you'd be a good choice, but like, a series about a minor league hockey team in a, struggling, Rust Belt town. Unfortunately, I don't think the circumstances have changed that much where we don't have.
Yeah. You could have something exist in the same universe as Nomadland.
Yeah.
The town where Frances McDormand lived, that doesn't even exist anymore because the industry shut down their local hockey team.
Yeah. I mean, not to make it, I guess you could make it, you could maybe in the form of a series, maybe better balance the comedy with the drama. Who would be really good with that? What's the name of the person who adapted Fargo?
Noah Hawley.
I feel like, I'm not saying like, oh, he's
Did I say
good.
Frances McDormand and it unlocked something for you?
You said, yeah. End of story. No, I was thinking like it would be a fun series, and not that like we need to call on Noah Hawley do a creative adaptation of a favorite film. We could do Jason Katims as well, but I feel like this one needs to be R rated. It is Slapshot. So
yeah, Well, I think that a reason why Slapshot is a cult classic and Slapshot 2 and Slapshot 3 nobody's asking for, to the point that they can't even be streamed anywhere, is the fact that there's more to Slapshot than just violent hockey.
Yeah.
Because if you just want violent hockey, you've got that. And I think that that's where the aforementioned movie Goon comes into play. And if I remember correctly, that movie's, I mean, it's Sean William Scott, and he gets drafted onto a hockey team because he's seen fighting really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it a while ago. I remember enjoying it.
I wasn't crazy about it, but I understand the fandom for it.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's like kind of the closest that it's reasonable to get to have a new, I mean, even that's what, 15 years old.
Yeah.
You know, another property about violence in hockey, which is a sport that it works because people can be violent in it.
Yeah. I mean, also like the tremendously graceful and wonderful skating.
Right. But that's not why most people go to see hockey games.
No. But again, I think that that's an element that with a series, and like you were saying, there's more to Slapshot than just violent hockey. With a series, you have more space to, you know, build out those characters and really get to, like, you know, who is Francine? You know, who is Lily? Oh, you know, who would be good at, I'm blanking on so many names today, but the actress from Barry. Although I feel like it's too similar to that role.
Well, who played Sally?
Sally, yeah. I feel like it's actually too similar.
Well, because of the violence?
No. I think
Sarah Goldberg.
I think just because she was very good in that role in Barry at like being mopey and like miserable and taking her frustrations out on people. So
yeah,
it's almost kind of like been there, done that. Now that I'm thinking about it, Bill Hader actually might be another person. I don't know what his, you know, feelings are about Slapshot, but it's another person who I could see, you know, building a series out of this idea, this concept of, you know, also mixing comedy and drama pretty deftly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'd get to know the characters more. You'd actually get more hockey and actually, you know, maybe not like the violence and the whole, like, you know, conflict between like, you know, are we pro wrestlers or are we athletes? Not that pro wrestlers aren't athletes.
You've been bringing up pro wrestling on this podcast, I think every episode for the past like 10 episodes.
For the past like 3 years.
No. There was a long time where it wasn't coming up, but it's been coming up a lot lately. I'm wondering, is this something that has come into your life in a greater way recently?
No, I don't think so. No, it's just a lot of, like CM Punk's Twitter handle was player coach. Like, you know, his, you know, picture was Paul Newman in Slapshot. You know, neither here nor there. But getting back to that, you know, that argument of violence, and I think Slapshot is very much focused on that because that's the plot. And okay, we're going to, you know, get butts and seats and we're going to get, you know, a good sale for our team because we're going to be violent. And I feel like that could be an aspect of a series, but you could explore a lot of other issues and things that are also relevant to that, like kind of minor league sports situation that I know nothing about really. So
yeah,
I would watch the show.
You would watch the show that you just pitched?
I would probably watch it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Depends. You know, not if it's on at the same time as wrestling. I don't know. Nope. Streaming doesn't matter anymore. All right.
There you go.
All right, John, what would you do?
Well, there's two different directions that I would potentially go. Because in one way, I don't think that there's a world in which this movie should really be remade. But I think that it would be great as an add-on to a hockey video game to be able to play as the Chiefs.
Oh,
I think, and like and they're the fighting skills are the higher up there or something, but to be able to play as the Hansons would be a lot of fun. I think that if we were to go down like in a route for a movie or a series, I think that to do something, if there's going to be something about hockey, not to do it about fighting, but to kind of do a bit of a reverse cutting edge and to make it about a hockey team that instead relies on fancy figure skating and fancy skating in general to improve ticket sales, to kind of make it more of a show, to kind of give it a little bit more razzle dazzle, and potentially even to use that as a tactic to distract the other team, with their fancy footwork.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, because I think that also, not that it was very different in 1977, but like we're really oversaturated with violence. And to have something that doesn't include fighting could be nice.
No, in fact, it might be interesting because if you come in, if it's going to be called Slapshot, if you're coming into something, maybe you're coming into it with like, all right, the violence, like this shit has to stop.
Yeah.
And maybe we see that in that first season where they're like, okay, well, we'll just play old fashioned hockey, and like, okay, that's not interesting.
Well, also, it's like the world outside is really upsetting and violent. And why would somebody watch a hockey game just to be exposed to more violence?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying necessarily that it's a good idea, but it's kind of like the direct. I mean, honestly, I think at the video game route, including the Chiefs as playable characters in a hockey video game, that's the way to go.
I'd be surprised if they haven't done it already, at least with the
I
Hansons.
looked and I couldn't find anything. Let's see. Play as the Hanson brothers NHL video game. I'm not seeing any of that.
Wow. All right. Well, all right. There you go. 2K games, are you listening?
I'm looking here in popular culture. This is just the Wikipedia page for Hanson brothers. Okay, the Cleveland Monsters of the American Hockey League employ a trio of Hanson lookalikes known as the Mullet Brothers, who sport long black hair and black rimmed glasses. The brothers shovel snow out of the net area during breaks in full uniform and pads. Oh, here you go, Dan. ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling characters, the Dudley Brothers, were based on the Hanson brothers. Two members of the stable, Bubba Ray and Devon, who would later shed the comedic elements of the gimmick and go on to become a Dudley Boys with a Z tag team. At the June 2011 NHL Awards, the Hanson brothers appeared in a spoof sketch based on the television series Pawn Stars, in which they tried to sell the Stanley Cup to proprietor Rick Harrison at his pawn shop. That's pretty funny. In 2015, the Hanson brothers were inducted into the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame. Wow. I like that. Okay, in addition to the original film, Slapshot, all three actors reprised their... Okay, we already did that. A trio of hockey players named...
Wait, hold on a second. I'm sorry, stop.
Yes?
I love that there is a Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame.
I know, I was going to come back to that.
Is there a physical location? I want to go.
I am not seeing an address for this. Yeah, I don't know. But let's just see. It doesn't look like there's been any inductees. Oh, okay. It started in 2013. 2014, we had Crash Davis, Bull Durham.
Yeah.
Ricky Wild Thing Vaughn, and Roy Hobbs, the Natural. Contributor was Harry Doyle, Major League, by Bill Euchre.
Bob
Euchre, sorry. Then 2015, we had Happy Gilmore, Reggie Dunlop from Slapshot, the Hanson brothers. We had contributors were Carl Spackler, Caddyshack, and Mr. Miyagi. Interesting. 2016 was Apollo Creed, Benny Rodriguez from The Sandlot, Charlie Conway from The Mighty Ducks. Contributors were Chubbs Peterson from Happy Gilmore and Gordon Bombay from Mighty Ducks.
What does it take to get Dottie Hinson into this Hall of Fame? I mean,
Well, I'll tell you what, Dan. Let me get to 2018, but first I got to 2017. We have Bobby Boucher from The Waterboy, Forrest Gump, Willie Mays Hayes. Contributor was Mickey Goldmill, Burgess Meredith's character in Rocky. And in 2018, we have Daniel LaRusso, Dottie Hinson, and Paul Wrecking Crew, Burt Reynolds' character in The Longest Yard. Contributor was Morris Buttermaker, Bad News Bears.
it's interesting.
And 2019, Clubber Lang.
Okay.
Fast Eddie Felson from The Hustler and Color of Money. So Paul Newman's in there a couple times.
Adam Sandler is in there several times.
Bobby Boucher, Happy Gilmore,
and it's funny because also even though they put the original Paul Wrecking Crew in there, Adam Sandler played him in the remake of The Longest Yard.
That's true. This is not honoring that iteration.
No, I
So I'm just going to quickly go through the rest of these. So also in 2019, we have Ivan Drago. And then we have the contributors were Coach from Cheers and Adrian Balboa. 2020 inductees were Al Bundy, Homer Simpson, and Johnny Lawrence of Cobra Kai. Contributors were Jimmy Dugan of A League of Their Own.
Okay. And
the Gopher from Caddyshack. And 2021, we have Jake Taylor from Major League, Tom Berenger's character, Jimmy Chitwood of Hoosiers, and Sam Malone of Cheers. And then the contributors were Norman Dale of Hoosiers, Gene Hackman's character, and Paulie from Rocky. 2022, we had Adonis Creed, Donnie, Michael B. Jordan, Lee from Enter the Dragon, and Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights. And the contributors were Irv Blitzer, Johnny Candy's character from Cool Runnings, and John Kreese, the Karate Kid, played by Martin Kove, who I recently saw in an episode of Murder, She Wrote.
Yes.
And I guess there hasn't been a 2023 one yet, but
Okay.
voting in the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame is public. There are 3 rounds of voting each year. 1 preliminary vote to narrow the field, the 2nd vote to refine the nominees, and a final vote to determine the inductees. And the criteria are the character must be a fictitious athlete or athlete supporting role appearing after 1970. In 2015, a veterans category was opened, which accepts nominees from before 1970. I see. So there you go.
So are we going to vote like Coach from Coach in, like Craig T. Nelson?
Was Craig T. Nelson a player
As a contributor. As a contributor.
Perhaps we will see him in the future for the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame.
I think he should absolutely be in there. Who else should be in the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame that we didn't hear?
Ooh, that's a heavy question. We have so many incredible sports movies throughout time, but they're fictitious characters, so it's not like Rudy can be in it.
Right.
Yeah, I think that a problem is that so many of the sports movies that we know and love either have been covered or they are real people.
They're real, yeah.
Yeah.
Because everyone, I'm like, Jake LaMotta. Nope, Jake LaMotta was real person.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there's a lot more out there. I don't know. If you have a pick for the fictional athlete, it's like fictitious fictional athlete Hall of Fame. Don't email them. Email us at ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Oh, you know who I would like to see inducted this year is Cole Trickle.
Cole Trickle of Days of Thunder.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Absolutely. Interesting because John C. Reilly is in Days of Thunder and Talladega Nights, which is just wonderful.
It's beautiful.
It's been around forever.
Dan, why don't you tell everybody what movie that Paul Dooley is not in that we're going to be covering on the next episode?
Okay. So our next episode from 1997, which does not feature Paul Dooley, is Event Horizon. Scary, spooky spaceships in space and scary. And Sam Neill, Lawrence Fishburne, Kathleen Quinlan, Jolie Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
is in there. Jason Isaacs,
yeah. And it may be a little bit longer until we release the next episode. There's going to be some travel in our future.
Yes.
And it may be a hot minute until we can record again. But don't worry. Event Horizon is next.
Event Horizon.
Well, Dan, as you are blazing down the streets of Charlestown with Lily Braden going crazy fast. I wish you a good journey.
As I do. Good journey.